This Scrutiny Committee meeting is being held live on live stream on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council Standing Orders. The Council Standing Orders and Code of Conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for the public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request, and the images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the Council. Thank you for that reminder, colleagues. And just to confirm, this is the Performance Scrutiny Committee with the Partnerships, and it's Wednesday, the 25th of March, 2026. So if we go into the first part of the agenda, which is apologies. Do we have apologies, please?
Apologies, Chair, from Councillor Screen.
That's great, thank you. And declarations of interest from the room? No, just mind that just in case the Bridge Achievement Centre is mentioned, I am the governor on that pupil referral unit, but shouldn't take an issue on that side. So if no further ones, we'll move on to the next slide, which is the substantial report today, which is the Newport Life Partnership update. Do we have a presenter? Is that yourself, Steve? Or yes, sir. If you want to introduce and or introduce who's on the panel today, also introduce the report there. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you for the invitation this evening. My name is Steve Ward. I'm privileged position of Chief Exec of the not-for-profit charity Newport Life. To my right is our Chair, Kevin Ward, as he always says, no relation, but Chair of our Board of Trustees, non-executive directors.
Yes, so Police Representative Generation Economic Development here with Matt, and we act as the client team for the contract which Newport Life manage on things.
That's great, thank you. So if you want to bring the report up, do you need the PowerPoint slides or is it just a verbal report?
I'm going to start with the verbalised, whereas in years before I've delivered, not death by PowerPoint, but multiple PowerPoint slides. This evening, I will leave you with an option of an additional presentation, which would be a slightly different view of our sport and physical activity systems leadership, collaboration, and some of the work we do around community sport and wellbeing. So I'm going to try and be succinct this evening, and hopefully you've noted that in the report, Chair, that we circulated, which included a number of links. So the links hopefully showcase some of the work and the context that we did. But the presentation I've got will contextualise that a little bit more. So should that be of interest to members, once I conclude, if you think that's of value, Chair, I can bring that forward. It would certainly highlight more of the work that we do in education, community, and our crossover work with social care provision. So just to briefly take you through the report that you have in front of you. It's a little strange presenting on 24-25 when we're at the end of 25-26. So excuse me if some of the questions you ask later are a little foggy, but we do our best to answer them. So for the benefit of all members, Newport Life was created by the City Council back in 2014 and went live in April 15. I won't spend time on the background of that, you'll have it in front of you in the report. And 24-25 was the 10th year of operation for Newport Life. So managed to get through that phase in a positive trajectory all the way through. In the year of 24-25, we continued with the same objectives, no significant change, no move away from those objects that again were established by the city. Newport Life has started to pivot to the left and the right. You've heard Tracy talk about the contract, so the funding and management agreement. A lot of services that Newport Life then deliver is outside of that core contract. So it can be individual contracts, so you'll hear a little about that today. Direct contracts with departments in the city, but also with multiple external providers. So during the year, our governance was strong, 11 non-executive directors. upheld our board. There's some more detail in the report. City Council had two board members at any point in time. That was Councillor Forsey, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Druitt for a period of time whilst he was with us. So certainly will have scrutinised the number of our board meetings and been present to that. So that's actually very positive this evening. Really importantly for me to highlight on page 5 of the report, and it's late this year, but Haynes Watts, our external auditors, gave a clean audit opinion again for Newport Live. So that's positive. It demonstrates good governance, and it demonstrates that we're meeting the necessary tests of the charity SOAR requirements of a business, but importantly, whilst doing that, delivering the outcomes for the city. So really, what I can share with members tonight is the contracted delivery is really all about partnerships. In isolation, Newport Live will be an operator of boxes and facilities, but it will not achieve the outcomes. So underpinning this report, it talks you through the partnerships that we have, and I'll go into a little more detail. The facilities, which I don't think I need to go any further on, because there were no changes in 24-25. There was going to be the surrender of one facility, which is external to the Newport City Council contract, which we call the Connect Centre, Newport YMCA. However, through our partnership with education, the board determined that would also be a retained facility. That's referenced in the report. And then what's key for me to highlight to members really were the priorities that drive us on a daily and a weekly basis. They're set out pages 8 and 9, but participation, increasing awareness in physical activity and cultural opportunity in the city. Health longevity, increasing active lifestyles. When operating the facilities and services, customer satisfaction and retention, that's key. That was key for us to focus on, whilst also making sure we were inclusive and we had accessible services. We really focused hard in the year on education, community safety functions, and I think that's strange, but sport and physical activity and cultural activities are a really, really strong diversionary tool, and a tool that we can use to engage young people. Our charitable aspects and options where leveraging the trust that brings in new sources of funding, which again was identified in the report, and becoming more and more important behaviour change, especially around health and wellbeing, and our integrations with the health and social care sector, and our Aberdeen University Health Board, Public Health Wales, and a number of other partners that we work with. I could go on, and I will go on, and I will move on a little deeper into the services and the products that we delivered, if I may. They remained constant. They followed the same form as the previous year. Everything from distinct facility operational management, discharging services such as free swimming for people 60 plus, under 17, a national exercise referral programme, hosting international national events, coach education, curricular programme for school swimming, so every school coming into the services that Newport Life could offer, through to hosting events such as Big Splash Lunar New Year, St David's Day, International Roma Day, International Women's Day. So in terms of reaching out to all sectors of the Newport community, that is absolutely front and centre of what we continue to do, using the assets that we are leasing from the City Council, but also leveraging the people and the partnerships that we have in place. To deliver that and lots of other programmes, Newport Life during the year had an average of 391 colleagues spread across 575 positions. So an employer of choice is where we seek to be, but we offer employment on full-time, part-time and casual basis. For young people, I think our youngest colleague was 16 and our oldest colleagues were into their 70s, all adding huge value into the organisation of experience and quality. We were proud, we were led by our board, maintained once again the Living Wage Foundation rate of pay, which is referenced within our contract from the city. That's a financial challenge, but we believe it's an absolute must in terms of trying to meet the aspirations, because we know the City Council is seeking for to be a living wage employer, the city to be a living wage payer. So if I can just highlight a few of our performance outcomes during the year. So talking about people, there's a reference in the report, and I think it's relevant to share with members that our spend on salaries in the year went to 6.5 million. It's risen about 55% since the trust was created, primarily because of the increasing living wage foundation from £9.50 when we started to, in this year, it was £12.60. So it's a big material change over that period of time. And just to give you a context, around about 70% of our colleagues were in receipt of that differentiated payment. So it gives you an idea of the level of exposure that an organisation like Newport Life has when those increases are greater than inflationary increases. Financial performance for the year is set out in the report, page 16. It demonstrates that our operating income in the year increased by 1.2 million, which is really positive. That's come about because of taking on some new contracts, one of which was starting the Aspire education programme. That's 600,000+ in that alone, together with increases of fees and charges to our customers, but also growth in volume in a number of areas. Our grant income was principally flatline during the year, although we did lose £50,000 worth of grant income from the Arts Council of Wales following their review of their funding mechanisms. Grants went up hugely to organisations in Newport, which was really positive. Unfortunately, Newport Live and the operation of the Riverfront Theatre reduced 50,000 down to 73. In the year, the report references that management fees reported in our financial statements reduced from the council by 321,000, resulting in £1.64 million in terms of management fee. So that was obviously gratefully received, and that allows Newport Life to continue its operations on a day-to-day basis. Despite increasing our income by the amounts that I've referenced, we did suffer a net loss of 121,000 in the year. Moving on to, if I may, that's demonstrated through on page 21, Chair, of the report, in the small reduction in the reserves. So the reserves held by Newport Live, principally you'll see from the report, were developed in the first 7 years of operation. So when the management fee was flat and we traded positively at the beginning, then we went through COVID, and since then we've principally held the position. So there's healthy reserves. that sit there and are in line with good practice from the Charities Commission in terms of being able to have circa 3 months worth of trading income, so you can suffer any cash flow challenges, any ups and downs in the operation. So general reserves ending in the year of 890,000 and restricted reserves for particular investment, including some grant carry forwards, 1.47 million in the reserves. I've included a reference that members will see to our forecasted budget for 25-26, where we were forecasting a £51,000 surplus. I think in a week's time we should be able to say where I think we've outturned. Hopefully we're just on target to be in the surplus realm, but that will wash through in the next few weeks. But I wanted to give you some context of the changes. Really importantly for us to celebrate and reference is an increase in physical activity during the year. So if you look at the tables, you look at the statistics in there, there was a differential of reporting, but from the same sources. So how we reported it looks different, but the actual same source, the baseline inputs were demonstrating an increase. So we got to nearly 300,000 more participations in physical activity in the year. Although when you look at our theatre performance, it looks like we've reduced by 50,000. That was due to a number of events and the way that we were able to capture that information. The performance in the theatre itself, you'll see from revenue tables a little later, was actually commercially very strong at £1.25 million worth of income. And I think what you'll see there is an increasing upward trend in participation. We had growth at our interim station gym facility. We haven't hit all of the targets that we want to hit in that facility, but that was more than a 50% growth in participation year on year in that facility alone. Just to bring to your attention that there was a strategic intent from the Newport Life board to create a new strategy, a new 5-year strategy in 24-25. The board met on a number of occasions and actually decided to defer that strategy because our partners, including Newport City Council, are creating multiple new strategies, including cultural strategy, placemaking plan, sports pitch strategy, which has just been created in the last month or two, and a number of other strategies and changes coming through, including the Gwent Sports Partnership. That process has also ended with a new board member joining Newport Live, and there's some updates for 25-26. Someone who's in a strategic planning position is now taking the helm and supporting Newport Live to develop that going forward.
Can you two stop around a little bit, actually, because I'm aware you've got some slides on the presentation to get through as well, if that's okay.
I think what you'll see from me delivering the presentation in a moment is the impact that we have outside of what I would call the places, the boxes and the spaces, outside of the good facilities, the excellent facilities that are in the city. I'll talk you through the wider benefits that cross over to Youth Justice Programme and some of the statutory services that you've got in the city. If I were to highlight some other points for you, some real interesting collaborations. The first AI-based solution showing where people are using and what they're using in gym spaces in the whole of the, I'm going to say the world, those in the commercial sector, happened in station. We've got people flying into Newport to see that. And our Aberdeen University Health Board moved part of their musculoskeletal physiotherapy team into one of the sites to demedicalise the model and encourage people to take care of their well-being. That's thriving, shifting from 1 day to to 3 as we fast forward through the years. That's super positive, as is a programme we introduced called Good Boost, where people are referred in, they're using water-based activity for physical activity, and they're not in the National Exercise Referral Programme. We had some good growth in our swimming programme during the year. We hosted some excellent events. You'll see from a cycling perspective, we continue to deliver a Wheels for All inclusive programme on behalf of the city in Trinity Park. Lots of young people, lots of special schools coming in and utilising that. The Momentum programme strengthened partnerships, including coming into Newport City Council to support people with their active travel and provision and journeys to work, learning to ride, learning to cycle, and also encouraging people to walk and traverse the city. We won Competition of the Year for visually impaired tennis competition, and if anyone ever wants to see one of the most inspirational events ever, go and watch that. Completely blind individuals playing tennis with a double bounce with a bell in the ball. They are inspirational people, and it's a privilege to be able to host things like that in the city. Whilst we also saw a huge growing trend of sport pickleball, real inclusive sport, younger people through to old people playing that in the velodrome active living centre. And you'll see throughout the report the breadth of sport and physical activity in the clubs that we can support in the city. If I may, Chair, I'll take a tiny bit longer. The Riverfront Theatre, and I can't wait to present for 25-26 to tell you some of the outcomes of that. But in 24-25, 25,000 attendances to Dick Whittington, the pantomime, which is our principal performance, completely created internally in-house. That drove around about 35% of our income towards 1.25 million in terms of turnover in the theatre, which is 490 seating, but 900 workshops, 15,000 participants coming to that, 12,000 people coming into the cinema space, which is now the only cinema space in the city centre. So trying to use those spaces for multiple purposes, and then a lot of the time in partnership with the city, hosting things like Lunar New Year. So I don't know if you saw any of the videos that were in the background. Good quality, high quality, but activation in the city centre as well, and getting people talking about Newport. So that's one of the privileges. We're not just a simple operator. We have the privilege of being able to span rich cultural experiences and bring those into the city. Just speeding through, Chair, we're super proud of our community sport and physical activity programme, which I will share with members in a second if you'd like me to deliver that presentation. Huge numbers of pupil participation from learning resource, LRB units, participations for looked after children. We still maintain the provision of that for any children in corporate care, also foster carers. So respite care coming in, using the facilities, gaining access free of charge. As part of that condition, Newport Life has maintained that. There is no additional support, but that's obviously a key driver. And if I can draw your attention, nearly 120,000 participations in primary schools on the Daily Mile activation programme. So trying to get our younger people more physically active. So we get the chance to go and work in nurseries and primary schools all the way through provision of breakfast clubs, half-term programmes. We call it holiday hunger programmes. So we're often providing food in some of those locations, and some of the communities in which we deliver those services. Positive Futures has a big footprint in a number of our communities. Community sessions of the evenings, Baptist, Ribbon, Israeli, Gilbrantley, St Julian's, naming a few. And interestingly and importantly, and I'll show on a slide, we have an integrated youth justice worker now in with our sports programme coaching teams. So the conversations on the side of the pitches are very, 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 very different. Volunteering, we continue to grow that. Train to Teach programmes, brilliant programme for Kid Care for You. Some of you may have seen them get an award in the Newport Business Awards last week for their work. And we have 6 young people who've come through that programme who are awesome employees now. Wouldn't have come anywhere near Newport Life, wouldn't have been working in the sector, gaining their experiences of working with us, and hopefully they will stay with us for longer. A few highlights at the rear of the report, just reference where we think our operational strengths were and our highlights were, and also our challenges. You know, it wouldn't be right for us not to say that there were challenges. Some of those were financial, some of them are upholding some of the requirements in the agreement. That said, we navigated that positively with some challenge, and hopefully members will have seen some of the pre-committee viewing that we shared. You know, whether it's momentum transforming the school run, whether it's Dick Whittington giving people an opportunity for their first experience of art and culture, International Women's Day, through to hosting the Velo Track Cup, you know, which brings business into the city whilst also demonstrating, you know, what Newport actually is. It's a big hitting city and it's a sporting city that we're proud of. So there's a few highlights from Newport Live in terms of the delivery of a number of services during 24-25, and Chair, if relevant, I can genuinely speed through a presentation which will show you that the sports system wider than just operating facilities, if you would like to.
I think we will. I know we've got people from People Committee watching as well, so I think it'll be beneficial for them to grasp what provisions there. If I can ask them, but it would be a quick one if that's okay.
If you've got that the PC that I can.
Well, while we're waiting, Chair, I thought those videos, the links were excellent and really gave very positive and professional view of Newport Live.
I agree, and I think for most of us as members and in the communities, I know that we've attended some events like the Chinese New Year and things like that, and fantastic events like that, cultural events, not just sport events. I think it's that provision, isn't it? It's not just about the sport, it is about the culture side of things as well, for sure.
What we try and do is utilise the underpinning skills in the background to deliver those events. You know, whether that's health and safety, financial planning, marketing, you know, event setup, takedown, organisation, safeguarding, whatever it is with colleagues that we've got that can lead into those events, so that the colleagues who work in the tech in the theatre will come and support those event setups in the velodrome and other when we have those events. So that's the benefit then of not just being a single, you know, a sole sports operator as an example. You can utilise and flex the benefits across the organisation. Are we ready, gentlemen? Excellent. So if I take you through to my PC will catch up to the first slide. Sorry, second slide. That's just a highlight of what's in scope. Facilities, operational services, we split it with business development and we split community. So you can see into that space, community sport, physical activity, NGBs, national governing bodies, quality, diversity and inclusion, positive futures, Aspire, arts development and active travel. Can I get you to go to the next slide for me, please? So you can just zoom out slightly. So on the left-hand side, you can see the interventions, primary schools, high schools, trying to lead on. There we go. trying to lead on healthy schools activation, targeting women and girls in schools. But really importantly, if I draw you to the middle and positive futures, our targeted provisions as partnership with the Police and Crime Commission, but also other partners, including Newport City Council and the preventions team, and other partners, where as a charity we can then leverage in funding from Levelling the Playing Fields as a big national charity who are gaining funding, as an example, from the London Marathon Foundation. So one-to-one referrals, young people referred from multi-agencies who would benefit from mentoring, power of sport, the use of sport, values, principles, behaviours, and change, behaviour change. Targeted intervention, so whilst we're engaged, whilst they're doing activity, they're not going to be doing other things. Tackling inequalities. ABUHB psychologist, what does that mean? On a weekly basis, we now have a psychologist working with our team and young people against the adverse childhood experiences that they may have faced. So we take a trauma-informed approach. So we're learning from all of these other sectors. It's not sport language. And we're engaging with young people then, so they can have better opportunities in school. And we're using sport as a trigger. And you'll see a little bit of that in a second. So it's very much about preventions and then helping families, helping and sending information back to parents about nutrition for young people, as an example. And then our Aspire programme. I'll come through that in a second, but Aspire is young people who are not thriving in school setting. In a number of our schools, we now have 4. At the end of 24-25, we had 3. So please ignore that slide that says 3, not 4. But those young people had their first an achievement day. 183 formal qualifications were achieved by those young people who otherwise would have been not in employment or training had they not gone into that programme. I don't need to advocate that. Your Director of Education and Cabinet Member for Young People and Education were the ones who spoke about that, and they saw it for the first time. And then finally, alongside that, we've got, you can see we're intervening with National Exercise Referral. So that could be people with chronic pulmonary disease. That will be people coming in from falls prevention, long COVID, various other programs. Weight management this year, this was the first year that we did a weight management referral program from ABUHB. So people coming in to be active, to actively support their weight management. And you can see a number of other areas. If I can get you to just click through a couple of the slides, give you a view of some of the young people. Systems leadership. Can I go to the next slide, please? And you just keep going down to the bottom. All this is saying is what do we do? We are very much about collaboration. We're very much working together with others. We're disrupting. We're pointing out where people are working in silos, and all we want to do is provide ways of working. Can we move to the next slide, please? This is really key for how we've worked. So we've got our sports coaches, and our term, and this is our term, means that we've been told we're jumping up and down people by health colleagues. But what that's led to is being partners on the Gwent PCC programme. We've accessed families first because they see the value. We deliver for social services, for education. We work in the alternative education space. We've got youth justice worker based with us now, and preventions workers. We've got psychologists. We're part of ABUH. We're influencing ABUHB's strategy for preventions. And importantly, that wheel goes is circular, and we're able to influence and be dynamic. Next slide, please. So Newport Light is able to leverage, able to leverage national partners, local partners, and the local authority. I just wanted to share this slide with you as members, just to see the different areas of the council that Newport Live actually interacts with. So you may not be able to see that really clearly, but I believe it's blue. This is from a colourblind male, but the blue level picks out the heads of service and the departments. And then where we've highlighted the yellow, so if I was to pick out the second column, which is housing and communities, so what we're saying is we're engaging in community regeneration, we're engaging in community cohesion, we're engaging in parks and recreation, we're engaging in the next area of active travel and delivering those services. We'll provide services on civil contingencies when there's an evacuation. We'll use the facilities, we've got trained individuals. So we work across all of those different departments. We could actually colour in finance, because we do have a role back with finance, and we do have a role in the middle with law and standards and dam services, because we might host some election counts, etc. So I may move this on. This to me is the power. This is really important. Whole system approach. What do we do? So in sports development, we work from a Gwent region in the year across the youth justice. I look at leisure centres, arts council, Sparkle Children's Centre we work with through the Welsh Government, Sport Wales, all the way across those lines, primary schools, private nurseries, secondary schools, back in the Flying Star, street games, you will have heard of as a national body. We work with all of the national governing bodies, using the examples of football, rugby, basketball, tennis, athletics, swimming, not just where we've got facilities, but where we can work with them to make Newport a home for the sport, or to make sure there's a pathway for Newport people to go through. We engage with the sports clubs on behalf of the City Council. We facilitate that. I think last year in our report we referenced leveraging £197,000 in for those clubs just to support them. And it might be just nurturing their grant aid application. Let's help you with that. Let's guide you on that. Let's help you with the safeguarding. We'll organise the courses. We'll host those courses. And then work with other partners, as you can see in the document. If you can just move on for me, please. It's just an example of what we do. We're inquisitive. We learn other people's language, and we prioritise their needs through interventions. We establish trust and respect through competency, proactivity, and professional delivery. Retraining our colleagues. So most of our colleagues in sports development now are youth work qualified, youth work trained. 6 or 7 years ago, quite the opposite. Sports people, sports coaches, come the other way around now, understand it from a young person's point of view, add sport back, channel them into sustainable community settings. Next slide. These are just a few. Just going to speed through some areas. This is sorry, can I go back one? That is a brilliant scheme. That we've had young people coming through programs, peer mentoring. So they will have been in a particular school in Newport. We went in, gave them some volunteer training. They've come out and gone into mainstream education and then peer mentored other young people. So absolutely brilliant resilience for young people. Next slide, please. Pre-24, we were reliant on funding. So these are the changes in 24-25. We were insular. We worked, we delivered programs. We changed. We've worked in partnership in 24-25. better with the disabled children's team. We're the only local authority and trust to have in-sport gold, which is accessible and inclusive sports programmes in Wales. Only one. No one else has still done that, to my knowledge. You can see we have programmes in the community, we work with play schemes, and we provide training for students. Aspire. Next programme. But you can see we intervene with you can go to the next slide, thanks. Grand Council, pick up work like that. And in education, we used to do 560 Dragon Sport mass participation. We just used to do it. Go in, deliver, go home. Inspire, but no legacy. Whereas now, interventions for family, whole school approaches, positive future referrals, Aspire links into education. So it's not working to the sport agenda. It's very much using sport, physical activity, arts and culture as an engagement tool. This focuses on sport tonight, and we've got a long way to go to make sure that our cultural offer can be as strong as the sports offer. It's got to catch up. There's opportunities because not all young people are driven by sport, physical activities, music, arts, culture, and the different art forms. Positive Futures, a lot of you may well be aware of Positive Futures. You may have even seen some of our videos last year, which are very moving. Work with the office, the Gwent Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, preventions in the city. You see some images there of young people and the various programmes that have been run, which include an asylum seeker football programme, which it started and is running even more so now. We've updated facilities in 25-26. Again, engagement, gentleman on the left-hand side is a youth justice worker, but totally embedded in our team for preventions. That's not for us saying, this is what we want to do. People saying, you're successful, how can we move into that space, partner with you to make a bigger impact? So you'll see Matt on the side of the courts in Hill on Friday night, on a Thursday night, on a Tuesday night. You'll see him Kent Park. You'll see him in different locations with our team, having random conversations, but being able to feed back into different departments, different preventions teams, back into the police and other agencies. Just gives an example of, we lead Positive Futures across Gwent. We provide advice and guidance and support and passport the funding from the Police and Crime Commissioner across the other Gwent regions. As that slide says, trauma-informed, psychologically educated team of professionals. I noticed them as our colleagues, that's what's being referred back to us now as having intervention programs with young people. That's a football festival on screen there, multi-agency. We were told that didn't happen. We were told in the city that's going to be gang warfare. So colleagues have gone and worked in those communities and brought those communities together with regard to respect and change. So we hope that then we can make Newport, using that as a tool, safer, better place to live, work, and those young people who are going to be our employees, our citizens of the future, recognise the values that we can give them subliminally through sport, physical activity, and arts and culture. We'll go to the next one. This is an example of leveling the playing field. So that was a big presentation. They came from far and wide and used examples of Newport. So it's Newport, Birmingham, Sheffield, and 2 other cities as the big hitters, if I can move us on. We were chosen as the strategic lead based on the outcomes that we're delivering in Positive Futures and our programs. Nothing else, deliverability. So national organisations choosing to partner with Newport. What is it all about? It's not about us. It's very much about, I said at the beginning, it's about partnerships, and I meant that. So you can see relationships with Newport Yemeni Community Association, GAP, Community House, Urban Circle. They all bring key skills. We can facilitate it. We got professionals who can work in there. Our statutory partners, fundamental. Going into Park Prison is not in Newport, but there are Newport people in Park Prison, and we can engage, and we can do preventative work and restorative work, which we now do. Obviously, there's intel that's reporting back to the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, and then feeding in nationally. So they're gathering intelligence and information based on what we deliver in Newport. Some examples, move on. I don't really need to read through that. It's what works. I think there's one key thing in there of what we do: connection before correction, safe faces and safe spaces. Very much about that engagement opportunities, and we're using it. So what do? We host a competition at the Sports Village. We do some celebration events at mainly primary school, which was a focus for particular reasons. That's why we were going there. Gap projects, Wednesday projects, Friday night programs in Pill, utilising those assets and facilities in Pill Grantley to have an impact, providing film programs in the Riverfront Theatre. We've done some really good work with the Roma community there. They've won awards. They've done some really, really good work in bringing people and communities together. And then targeting female groups, as an example, underrepresented groups as well, participation terms. Not just using Newport Life facilities, using the assets that are in the city, other businesses, other places. This doesn't just sustain a Newport Life facility-based program. We can't do it with the facilities we've got. We need to use, for example, that I think that's a private football centre in Newport that will get used for that purpose. Next one. Young people engaged. That's it. So just to wrap up, and I'll effectively end on this slide. Focus is on building relationships. This is what we do. We are learning from the statutory sector as to what and how we're merely using sport as a tool in Newport to make it a safer, better place. We've got a youth justice worker involved with Positive Futures. You'll see a blue van driving around the city. They are picking up young people to take them to sessions. There are interventions, and those interventions then gives us a community presence, gives us trust. We can build relationships. We can provide information to statutory organisations to say, this is happening. We can safeguard individuals, and as that says there, identify young people who are vulnerable to exploitation. That sadly is happening, and we're trying to intervene with it. We're able to then target and mentor and promote sport physical activity for ethnically diverse communities. In Newport, we have diverse communities amongst us. And ultimately, we work in collaboration. We're working in collaboration. We've been highlighted as sometimes supporting the reduction in crime. Some will never know. We win, we lose some, but we're trying to influence young people and behaviours for the long term and for the future. And if I may, we'll just go on 2 more slides, 3 more slides, and we'll skip over that, and then the final slide. So the legacy from our levelling the playing fields work in this year. Does anyone recognise gentleman on the right hand side?
Yes, he was my former neighbour.
He was your former neighbour. So Leon Brown, I played for the Dragons, Welsh Rugby International. Leon volunteered for Positive Futures programme, giving back when he was a professional athlete. Sadly, got an injury, neck injury, retired from rugby. Leon, we are now proud to have as an ambassador and an employee. So Leon's intervention, using all the values that he gained from playing sport to engage with young people. Now, we know where he's grown up. We know the background that Leon has and his lived experiences, and for us that is hugely valuable, because he can, and we are using people like Leon as role models to demonstrate the power of sport, power of physical activity, but making the right choices, being a role model. So our work and our role using sport, using physical activity, using culture is very much that on behalf of the city. Run the facilities, run the programs, make them as cost effective and inclusive as we possibly can, but also get into the communities, inspire next generations, but also provide interventions where subliminally through sport we can make a difference. It's not someone going in through a statutory organisation in a uniform. It's softer conversations that can change and influence behaviours that make Newport a safer and better place. So just wanted to reflect on some of that work that we do. I could have given a presentation on our Aspire programme, which is about those young people, and I stopped short of that because our 25-26 presentation will very much focus around the attainment and the journey that programme's been.
Thank you. So I think we'll open up to 4 questions. So on that side, a little bit of a change because I normally don't ask why we'll go first in this situation. But the question I had. So we've had things like Newport North, which had a different model. They've now changed the operation model. Do you find, because you were basically established at the same time, that the current operating model works for you, or do you think that needs to be reviewed in order to be more successful?
The leisure trust model is the principal model now of operation or deployment for leisure provision across the UK. The charitable model, the benefits of that, both whether it be financially, the agility of the model still remains relevant. Outside of my role in Newport Live, I sit on the board of Community Leisure UK, which is the trade body for leisure trusts in the UK, and that is getting stronger and stronger. There are challenges, all too often they're linked to fiscal challenges or regulatory challenges. It could be the NI changes, it could be living wage foundation if that is there. But the model itself is still relevant and strong. Nothing has superseded it. There are ways of embellishing the model, so there are changes coming along in the taxation model as has been demonstrated in the last year or two, that can make it even more efficient. So there are opportunities ahead for us if they're able to be embraced through the partnership. But yeah, it's still an absolute fit for purpose, and I would advocate the best model. If it wasn't, we could recommend change in terms of changing the model of the organisation, or the charity is formed, the business is formed. For us, it's the model, whether everything that's within the agreement, that's up for discussion and negotiation, but the model absolutely works. It gives you the dynamism, Chair, and it gives you the ability to be agile, take those opportunities, step outside of Newport, stay in Newport, and solve problems for other people in a cohesive way.
Thank you, Steve. And I think it's like the apples and pears to a degree, because I know Newport North moved from the operation model across to a LATCO and stuff like that in terms of operating, but obviously they had other shareholders to speak, where, from my understanding, a lot of the provision is obviously put back into Newport. A lot of the stuff gets basically placed within Newport in terms of all money's raised somewhat stays within the city to benefit the city over a large compared to the North model.
Every penny, if I may, not-for-profit charitable entity if there is a surplus, that is retained within Newport Life. There are no shareholders, there are no dividends paid. It stays purely and simply in Newport Life. Newport Life is investing, as it stands at the moment, solely into Newport, either assets or people or programs. It's not going outside of Newport, so there is no leakage of any such surpluses when they're created. The investment stays and goes into Newport. Granted, there may be people who work in Newport and outside benefit from that investment, but the investment back into the assets is in Newport, for Newport.
If I just answer that, Chair, from the board's point of view, and I'm the only survivor from the original board, so I've been on the board. I don't know whether that says something about the board or me. So I've been on the board since Newport Life's inception, and although the operating model, broadly as a leisure trust, funded primarily through a management fee from the local authority, hasn't changed. Newport Live is a massively different organisation now compared to when it started in 2015 in terms of that, Steve's kind of gone through a lot of it, that very broad breadth and reach of activities that we deliver.
No, I think it comes through, and Tracy, I think you want to come in as well.
Yeah, I just think that's a really good question, Chair, because obviously the world has changed. We're 10 years into what is a 25-year partnership. And certainly we've taken the opportunity at that 10-year sort of anniversary to say, let's look at that kind of management agreement and just check that it's working for all parties, because it would be too easy for all of us to sit back and say, well, the agreement says we need to do 1, 2 and 3. We don't need to do X, Y and Z, but actually that's what the sort of the requirements of 2026 return and beyond are the requirements to do. So we have engaged with some consultants to review that fund management agreement just to make sure that it is still doing what we envisaged it would do and achieving what we wanted it to do 10 years ago, but for the current day and age and the current pressures and opportunities, I suppose. So we are doing that. So it's really
Thank you for that, Tracy. I think it adds on to the fact, obviously, to keep modern, but also, in fact, of looking at our population changes, because obviously in the last decade we've seen Newport actually coming up in a world where we've got an older population that's increasing, but also a younger population that's increasing. So we need to make sure that both the model but also the partnership is strong enough together to be able to incorporate that in terms of the moving forward, planning forward, and that's from a local authority perspective, but also from Newport Live in the way that they work together, whether or not that, looking at the financial aspects, but looking at the projects that we've seen also, like the Aspire project, which I've, for myself, I've seen around, but also I know other councillors speak very highly about as well. And I think it's important as well. I suppose it's maybe, where the formal statutory side of things would normally fail because people just don't interact with them, or it's that feeling, isn't it, about the local authorities, that big, thing over there, they don't really want to engage. However, as Steve was saying then in the presentation, like, how do you engage like Leon Brown, the former rugby player, and things like that there, and how do you incorporate people that wouldn't necessarily come through the structures or we struggle with in terms of the youth club and youth provision? How do we bring them in to do things, whether or not be through, education, through other means, through sport, through, hopefully, I suppose, through coaching and things like that there, so they get involved as a participant, and then hopefully they become role models in their own right, particularly through that engagement in the long run. So obviously inside things, so that's positive on that side, and I suppose it's good on that. I suppose within that side of things then, where I put my notes, apologies. So if I go on to Councillor Peterson, I think you had a question first of all to note as well there, please.
I've had my hand up for a while, Chair.
That's fine, Kevin. Bear with us a second because it links in.
Yeah, can you actually see my hand? It's been up for ages.
That's fine, Kevin. I've got you noted to come in, but I do have James first of all.
My question is about in Newport is the management fee has been reduced over the past 2 years on 2024, and looking at the broad breadth of what Live is offering, the population growth, the cost of living crisis, them two things don't normally happen together. Like, so Newport Council is paying a smaller management fee, but getting a lot more from Newport Live. And I'm wondering what sort of impacts it would have on the running of Newport Live from Steve's side, and from the council. Are we asking for Newport Live to deliver more, but we're going to pay less? And this is the long-term objective, is that we pay very little for the benefits of the services?
So I suppose the funding management fee is only part of the financial contribution that the council makes to Newport Live. So we also pay all the energy costs, and we also pay all the capital maintenance costs. There's an annual budget, not enough, probably agree, but there is an allowance. So it's, you only see in the actual funding management contract fee payment that we produce, but we cover all those other costs. And I think you make a really good point that, you know, the sort of demand on services is increasing. But I think as an organisation, as you know, any organisation, the council's also got its budget constraints as well. We are also trying to deliver more, but with less resource and less money. So unfortunately, we've had to pass on some of those efficiency savings to Newport Live. And you know, with respect, they've met that challenge and have to look at their own efficiency. It's not been easy for them. I think we acknowledge that, but they've certainly, you know, we've had to share that sort of the pressures, I suppose, that we're all under as organisations to do more with less.
Like, it's because with that, sometimes there's a tendency, because they've done well when they've been put up for the challenge, it can sometimes look lucrative to go, well, we're cutting a little bit more because they've lived up to the challenge, and then that balance goes off. So that's where the second part of the question comes on, Steve and Kevin, of if it continues to keep dropping like it has in the past 2 years, what impact will that have onto the service and like the statutory parts of it as well? Because I understand like there's external funding as well for Newport Live, which you've accrued through the charity status. But what would happen if it did continue to be cut?
So I think just it's worth stating from a historical perspective that when Newport Live was set up, that there was always a plan that the management fee would reduce over a period of time. But the original plan was it would stay flat for the first 5 years of operation, while the organisation was able to build up its own reserves and different income streams, etc. Now, obviously, things like COVID have happened that's, you know, changed us. So we've never expected as a board or Steve and the exec team for the management fee to stay flat. We understand that we can't be immune from public finance pressures, and I suppose the answer to that question is that, you know, we either have to. It's with any business. You know, I come from the private sector, probably, you know, one of the most sort of voracious parts of the private sector, where we were expected to deliver 40% profit margins every year. You either make efficiencies, or in our case, you go out and you really leverage as much external finance as you can, external grants, and we are pretty good at doing that as an organisation. I think where it can sometimes be a challenge for us is that because our budgeting processes and timelines are aligned with the City Council, we don't tend to know where we are with management fee until the council is setting its budget, which is the same time as we're setting our budget. So that becomes quite difficult in a planning process, you know, and that may be something where, you know, as a board, we say to our partners at the council, look, you know, can we look, I was going to say 5 years hence, but on the basis there's an election next year, maybe after next year, we start to look a little bit further ahead and start planning where that management fee will be, which helps us in terms of our financial planning.
And just to answer that, Councillor Peterson, you know, you're right, it would be great if the management fee could be stronger and higher. We recognise a lot of what is in the core management agreement is not statutory service. You've seen we're branching into those spaces now, and we're able to demonstrate our value to education and social care and other spaces. So there's value that we're able to leverage in there. That for us is, if you like, commercial contracts, even though it's somewhat in the public sector. We've got a mix of commercial income, hire, events. We will maximise our grant funding that we can from partners. We'll maximise it on behalf of the city from a capital investment point of view, and always try and get a leverage and a multiplier around funding. But you pick up on a key point. The social value is also fundamental for us. So there are a number of grant-funded programs that then end up delivering free of charge provision. So free of charge provision might be under 17 free swimming, where there's some funding, 60 plus provision, subsidised provision through the National Excise Referral Programme. So it's not always clear where those subsidies are, and sometimes the benefits are not directly back to the council, but it's back to the residents in an indirect fashion. So there's a real mix in terms of when you look at the business of clean income generation and selling coffee and tea and things that supplement it. The splits that we have in the Riverfront Theatre will often be, a split between the performer and the house, us. So in terms of generating commercial income from that, so we can then reinvest it. And I think, to answer your question, what would give if that management fee reduces? We've had to hold on some posts when certain contracts have not actually come to fruition. We were going down a route with a particular provider in Velodrome of a real new innovative product, and it failed at the final hurdle. So we had to reforecast the budget in 24-25 in the first 2 weeks to the tune of about £100,000 reduction. What I'm proud of in there is that we can navigate all of those lines of income, but it does come to a point where you say, okay, if that funding reduced further, some of the areas might be operating hours within facilities, for example, that you could look at reducing. Or it would be some of those outreach provisions or some of the other events that generate the social value. So adding funding back into some of those city centre based events that we would look to reduce to protect the core of the charity. I think we're transparent with the reserves that we have, the governance that we have with the board members is strong. What's really important to us is cash flow, because even within our budget where we have reserves, we try and put those onto deposits, so we recover some interest. So there's good governance and treasury management around that to maximise every pound that is we can be investing for Newport, because it is that not-for-profit, and if we can invest as we do, and we continue to do so into the assets and people, it will make this a stronger relationship and partnership. And we're awaiting the outcomes of the review from the consultants. We've lent into that. We've provided all the information requested of us, and we'll be interested to work through what any recommendations are for that funded management agreement, and what's included in that going forward.
Thank you. I am aware, Kevin, you've had your hand up. Is it in relation to this question, or is it a different question, first of all? Sorry.
No, it's regarding the bullet points I've made from the presentation. It's not, I've got a few points to make, and their observations in the main. I mean, literally, that conversation there does relate to if financial difficulties were ever faced, what would be the priority areas? And I think Mr. Ward, remember me, Steve? I think he might have kind of covered that there, because there would be priority areas for what Newport Life sit above. The jail visits thing, I think, was interesting. It's something I personally do for my company, Amy, whereby we even now have got to a point where we employ ex-prisoners. We have one currently wearing a tag. So I think, yeah, that's good good work, whether it could be progressed to somebody wearing a tag in your employment, I don't know. Unfortunately, Newport Live will always kind of have a reliance on funding avenues, and there's obviously concerns about whether they dried up. I'm interested in like barometers of performance, like we mentioned NEETs. I've always been interested in NEETs coming from an estate like Bettis because we have plenty of. And for me, when NEETs go through the system, they come out the other end when they get to a certain age. And I'm mindful that I'd love the NEET community, the NEET people, to be followed up and kept an eye on and monitored kind of as much as we can. And also a barometer would be nice to see figures on the impact of Newport Live on antisocial behaviour, because it's something else that is close to my heart. And just one other thing I think was Newport Live more than ever can play an important part because of the reduction in youth services, which everybody has to admit that has happened, reduction in youth services. So I think there's a massive role for Newport Live to play in that. And Leon, I see Leon earlier on, he went to school with my kids, nice kid. It's great to see him there, and it kind of led me into an observation around the community game of rugby. As you know, I'm a long-time rugby coach, and the game in Wales at the moment is controversy everywhere. The national team have finished with a flourish in the Six Nations. But for me, people like, now you have Leon Brown on board, is there an opportunity for Leon to engage with the community game in Wales through an artery of the WRU with his contact? You're in a position to exploit that, I hope. And the other thing, I suppose, it's a bit of a whinge on behalf of some Bettis residents, and that's the physio at the Active Living Centre needs to be more readily available, because some people have actually left, unfortunately. So I know I've said quite a bit there. There's a lot to get your teeth around, but they're my observations, really. It is, other than it's a very wordy presentation, to be honest with you. I found that always good, Steve. It's what you do. And there's a lot to take in, you know. So sometimes it's digesting that, which I have for this week, and still I could come up with lots of other questions. And if I do, I'll go through the email route. Thanks for listening. Nice to see you, Kev.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, Councillor Whitehead. There, did you want to come back on the points? Yes, please. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Whitehead. In a couple of responses in terms of the NEETs and NEETs, young people, right? Young people that we're genuinely trying to provide opportunities for. We've got a number of training opportunities and also employment opportunities that we're seeking to offer more of. The Aspire programme is definitely bringing us closer into that space, not only providing training, but providing the outlets and creating the relationships with other partners. So there is an ongoing provision, which also includes more discussions with the Newport Youth Academy and where those young people are going specifically into vocational roles, vocational qualifications, and ultimately employment. ASB impact, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So what we do know is when young people are participating in programs, they're definitely not somewhere else at that point in time. So there's engagement, and we genuinely see behaviour change. We get feedback from education, we get feedback from other organisations, including the police, with regard to young people. And we also feed in openly into that space on young people's behaviour. And I think we referenced, our youth justice links. That for us is a fundamental of being an early intervention service on the front line. I think we could multiply that 5 times over and have a much bigger impact in the in outreach environments. And then it's really important to bring them back and welcome them into the core facilities that they'll be using when they're older, when they're parents, etc., that they will feel comfortable. I know the work we used to do in Pill and Underwood many years ago when I used to lead that. Is amazing when you walk down the street and someone stops and says, "Woody, do you want a lift?" You look into the car and it's one of the young people who used to come to midnight basketball with his young child and says, "I'll give you a lift into town." and that young person was not the friendliest and was not the most focused when we first did some work with them in Underwood. So did we change them? We will never know. So I can't answer that. Youth services, we never had qualified youth workers. Some of our colleagues now have got master's degrees in youth work because they're focused on making a difference to young people. It's not core, it's not in our funding and management agreement, but it's in our core philosophy of how to be successful in intervening with young people. If we don't understand them and the metrics around them, we're not going to be successful. And then finally on Leon Brown, you know, he's a classy operator. He's learning a lot in terms of the workplace. If we can facilitate and leverage him in the rugby space, that will be key. And I think the investment into Newport High in the Active Living Centre, 3G pitch now, which is about to open, it's got a shot pad and is full size, and we'll be able to play community rugby. Will also bring some of the, hopefully some of the WRU performance programs in and support the local clubs to improve standards and regenerate the game further. So we're supporting that. We supported the whole application process and drove that forward in 25-26.
I think it's also worth adding, Chair, if you don't mind, on the rugby side of things, that Newport Stadium, which we operate out of the city, is now the home for Newport RFC, apart from a couple of their sort of higher profile games, which are still played at Rodney Parade. And also, as a result, Friends of Newport Rugby are pretty much based at the stadium. In fact, one of the kind of leading lights in FONR now works for us in the Momentum team. And that whole move of the RFC and out to the stadium, from our point of view as Newport Live, has meant that we now have some really, really strong links through Steve with the WRU. So, I only see that kind of expanding.
Chair, if I may, on Councillor Whitehead's point, 50% of our community sport and wellbeing team have come through the channel of being young ambassadors, young volunteers into early employment, and then have gone on. And we value that hugely because they've got community and lived experience. So sometimes you need sport specific, you need quality, you need class, you need achievement, you need inspiration. Other times you need understanding. So we've got a good mix there. But it definitely shows that we're employing local people who come on the journey and understand it, and they value it. And also we find that they're key employees, and they also stay. They're also super loyal, and they give back to their communities in ways that you don't always get from just simple employees. We've got skin in the game.
Yeah, fair play, Steve. Just before I leave it, yeah, Ellis Redmond is a good example. He's a nice kid, had a bad knee injury, very good footballer, and I know he's worked on Momentum, and he's got football experience. So yeah, I mean that's a positive for Newport Live. People like Ellis Redmond, so I take that point.
That's very well, thank you. Councillor Druitt, you were waiting a little while. If you want to come in, please.
Yeah. The work that Newport Live does and will continue hopefully to do in long into the future is really positive for Newport. One of the issues is quantifying the benefits to individuals. You have somebody who's been on a prevention course that you run, and you prevent them going, let's say, into the Park prison, or you prevent antisocial behaviour. How is that quantified in terms of the value that you can say you have contributed to the city? And I think that that's a difficult thing actually to say, but certainly the work that you do is hugely supportive of community cohesion within the city. And so are you using your charity status to get grants effectively? And are you using your links with private businesses and industry in the area to continue your work?
If I can, absolutely. You take levelling the playing field that we included in that presentation, you know, that support for a charity to a charity, being able to apply into London Marathon, being able to apply into a number of spaces, that charitable status as the vehicle really allows us to operate in that space and access funding that otherwise it could be delivered by public sector partners can't access. So there is a huge element, and people look upon life differently there. The pure commercial element, we haven't always been successful in, but that is something that is top of mind, is focused, and we continually request, and we continually try to get those relationships. Sometimes it's not cash, sometimes it's expertise, sometimes it's support, sometimes it might be free software, right? It might be free training, it might be things that are then, you know, available to us as a bursary. I'll bore you, but risk management it could be, which then reduces the cost of our insurance. So if we get better over there with some support from a provider, then it can help us drive our costs down. So indirectly, absolutely. We've got some good commercial partners. Does it leverage huge amounts of cash? No, but it certainly leverages value. And I think you will also know the value of the board of non-executive directors. So that board of non-executive directors, and I'm saying that because our chair is here, is hugely valuable. People come from different walks of life, different skills, different business backgrounds. They open doors, they provide advice and guidance, they look through their respective lenses, financial control, chartered accountancy, business, IT, you know, the sales journey, the sales funnel. They talk us through that, they advise us, they guide us, marketing success, return on investment. And that is something I think in that not-for-profit space that the City Council benefits from having Newport Live as a partner to the left, funded, supported, challenged, but able then to navigate those spaces which are, you know, when if you work as a public servant, you can't move as agilely, as quickly as what you can. Now, don't get me wrong, the risks come with that for Newport Live that we've heard about, but also the opportunities to work in partnership and work on behalf of, you know.
Yeah, no problem, thank you. And I'll come to Councillor Hussain, because I know you had a question about staffing as well, so I think it's ideal time to bring you in.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, a lot of my questions have been answered. I mean, my one question was about diverse communities, whether just a second, I did write these down. I'm just going to grab my pad just a moment.
I think whilst we're waiting, I know colleagues. Basically, while we're waiting, just a question. One or two members were asking whether or not it'd be possible to come and see the facilities, if that can be arranged, maybe, especially with like the station and things like that. There, a number of them said they haven't been there yet. To see other than what we have in the reports, if they can see it in person, if that's doable.
Facilities, programmes, places, Friday night in Pill, no, Thursday night in Bettis, wherever that is, absolutely we'll showcase that, see it live, feel it, talk to the users. I think that's a fundamental for us as well in getting that 360, but we very much love to take you out and show you the facilities, the good side, the challenging side, but importantly, it's, you know, the service as it is.
That's great. Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Hussain, for waiting while we're waiting there in the space there.
okay. Thank you for waiting for me to get my notebook. Yeah, so the presentation was a very good presentation. The questions that I had were about diverse local workforce, but you did cover that within the presentation when you said you you had volunteers from Kids Care for You, and then they're actually part of your staff members now. The other question I had was about the ongoing shortage of swimming teachers. So in the report there was like a little section of the challenges for recruiting swimming teachers.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Hussain. Let me take those in order. One thing I didn't talk about, again, I talked about the value of the non-executive directors. In 24-25, we had the privilege of Rushna Begum on our board of trustees, and she very much changed our thinking, our behaviours, and opened doors into communities that we thought we were inclusive, and we believed we were equitable, but we weren't successful. So I think we learned a lot, and what's key is we still talk and we learn from those partnerships, whether that be with Active Lives as a group, and we did an event with them last week, whether that be Kid Care for You, and we continue that process. So we're now looking for a new cohort, and we met with Rushna last week with regard to more young people from Kid Care coming through as swimming teachers. We're delivering a programme of Train to Teach, where we fund the programme. We've currently got a marketing campaign going out. In 24-25, at the end of the year, we increased our salaries for swimming teachers from, I think, what was the £12.60 an hour, which for our level 2s, we took that to £15.60. So as a retention and an attraction tool, we surveyed the market and we increased that for swimming teachers. It's a challenging space, swimming teaching, because most of the hours are between 4 and 8, you can imagine, and on weekends, so young people when they're not in school. And whilst we've been without an asset such as the Newport Centre, trying to programme around Newport High Active Living Centre and the pools at the International Sports Village has been quite a challenge. So this, if I may, 26-27 is a real big programme for us, where we believe we've got to recruit at least 30 new swimming teachers. And really we probably need 20, but we know there's a turnover, because they're often entry-level roles, young people coming through, they go to university, they come back, they often transition through that role. So it's one that the whole sector has challenges with. It's a risk for us, but as I think we reported in that year, we had 2,574 young people. If I fast forward into today, we're not far off 3,000 young people in swimming lessons on a weekly basis in Newport. So we've got work to do, and if you know anyone who's interested in being a swimming teacher, share my number immediately, please.
Sorry,
Let me just unmute myself. I was going to say there's definitely more organisations like Rushna's organisation, YMCO, you've got NICA. I'm definitely, I'm sure they'd be interested in, helping you to recruit a few more. Maybe, some of their members or some of the youths that they support would be interested in volunteering, starting off volunteering, and then maybe joining the training programme you have.
I think that's something we could follow up with you offline, Councillor Hussain.
Yeah, definitely, of course. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have
Okay.
my email address, or maybe Chair can forward my email address, or well, you do have my email address because you did invite me to the Newport Live Iftar, but unfortunately I couldn't attend. So because it was Ramadan as well, and then I had to go to London. So I think you should have my email address, but I definitely be more than happy to liaise about that.
Thank you.
That's great.
The other. Just
Sorry,
one other thing. Sorry, Chair, I keep interrupting. Just one other thing. It was just about the Aspire, and it was good to hear all the good achievement, the positive achievements, and the qualifications and the improved in attendances. I was just wondering, you know, once they leave the programme, do you actually track the performance and see how they get on in the future?
As much as is practically possible. Some have stayed in touch. We can celebrate a number that have gone into different employments, both with Newport Live and also into some other organisations. But they do go off into the big wide world. There is an opportunity, I think, being created now that we're into year 3 for some of those learners and graduates to come back and engage in the programme. So what we were reporting here was effectively just getting into the 2nd year of delivery. But we can't track them all, but a number of them we have got clarity on where they've gone through informal links more than formal links.
Thank you for that. All that information. Thank you very much.
is that all your questions?
From me. Yeah, that's all my questions.
No problem. Thank you, Councillor. If I could just check with Councillor Bev Davis, did you want to come in with any, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I enjoyed reading the report. I mean, it was obviously a very informative report. A couple of questions I've got is regarding the station gym. I've got to be perfectly honest, as I was speaking to the chair before the meeting, I wasn't aware of how much was available there. So a couple of questions I've got is in regard to the take-up. Do you find that there's a high take-up of people that use the gym?
Yes, in the current context, we've seen more than a 50% increase in participation in using station in the last 12 months. So yes, there's a rich mix of users from 11 years of age through to our oldest ever customer going through there was 92. And there has been some provision in there for people from who were previously using Newport Centre, and we've got some disability programs. So yes, there is a good utilisation as a gym. It could be a lot stronger. We could have a lot more members and users that you need from we talked about it earlier, a commercially viable standalone product than what we have in station. But yes, it's got good occupancy. Certainly in the last month, in February 26, you're into around about 1,600 different individuals who've gone through that space. So they'll go through on multiple occasions, but you've got good numbers going into a gym.
That's brilliant news. I mean, the chair was referring earlier on with regards to visits. I would like personally myself to come and have a visit at the station gym. Would that be, could I just arrive, or do I need to phone to make an appointment?
You could just arrive. You can arrive 7 days a week. It's not a problem. However, ideally there will be a colleague who could welcome you in. So we have a reception function then most hours. If it's not a reception colleague there, which is about 6 hours a day, there is if you like, there is the duty manager or the fitness instructor on duty we'll take you round, tell you about stations, show you, or if we can coordinate it, we would take you round and tell you a little more about the whole facility. So station, the cycle storage facility that is in there, and generally who uses it.
That'd be great, thank you. The thing I'd like to say, I mean, obviously, through reading the report, I honestly didn't realise how broad it is of what you provide. That has really surprised me. So, I mean, I commend you all on that. I mean, I understand that Waste Savers, they provide the Aspire programme. Is that true?
No, Newport Life deliver the Aspire programme. That's solely, I think Waste Savers have a similar programme,
Right.
but not the Aspire programme. So they have a programme that does a similar thing, but it's not the Aspire programme. Aspire purely came through the relationship between Newport City Council's Education Department and Newport Life, and we are, as it stands now, the partnership crosses over with 4 high schools. So John Frost, Llanwern, Diweddariad and Newport High.
That's lovely. I mean, I've got to be honest, I mean, I'm a great advocate for our teenagers, because I find that that's very often where things are lacking for teenagers to do. So it was lovely to be able to look at the report and see how much is out there for our teenagers to, like you say, keep them off the street, keep them out of trouble, because I think, you know, without places like you provide for our teenagers to go, then yes, they do end up then going down the wrong route. So I would like to say thank you to all of you for everything you provide, and I look forward to going to the station gym sometime soon. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And just to double check, there's no further questions from Councillor Hussain or Councillor Davis at all?
I'm good, thanks, Chair.
Okay, I'll do the sweep of the room, then I've got 1 or 2 as well.
None from me, the Chair.
Perfect, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Peters, anything further from yourself? No. Councillor Bright?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Cheers. Well, yeah, excellent report. A couple of things. I think you should acknowledge the work you do outside the Newport. You know, Big Splash, people coming in, the Riverfront Theatre, the excellent asset, the Velodrome. We really promote Newport out the world stage. And Newport is a destination city. The things you're doing really are actually commended. I don't think there's enough of that in the report, really. We're sort of been focusing, but then the stuff you do outside with promoting Newport is really commended. And momentum, I just want to pick up on momentum, really. Again, you could work you're doing there. I think at Big Splash events, went down, spoke to the person who attended there. I then ended up renting, borrowing free a bike, electric bike for 6 weeks, and used the station, which got well with that. The only issue being the location of the bike store being up to the first, so trying to carry an electric bike up there wasn't great. So then I said, oh, this wasn't working. So then I borrowed a road bike, which then didn't work for me, and I then bought one from a cycle work scheme. So I think that this worked for me. But on the back of that, I mean, that's really encouraging to actually travel. I just wondered, have you got statistics? Because I'm a driver of a cyclist, I'm not using it at the time, and momentum's, you know, trying to encourage modal shift and change. Have you got statistics that maybe show that, you know, that there is long-term change in maybe travelling and walking through the work that Momentum's doing?
We've got anecdotal evidence, and we've got evidence coming back through from Transport for Wales, together with some of the survey work that we did with Mott MacDonald initially to gain an insight. I believe that is going to be repeated, I think later on this year, which would give us an insight. But what we have got all the analytics of those people who've engaged. So they either engage in that modal shift of walking, and they've joined in walking groups, and they're now doing other activities. And then we've got the insight of the adults who are engaging in the cycling, learn to ride, learn to repair, learn to mend programs. Probably haven't got that in a form which actually is able to demonstrate how many, volume and the frequency, because we can't track the number of times that you then go and use your bike and you cycle to work, and there's no method of someone recording that for us. So that's a weakness. However, what we are aware of is, so what are we into now? The 4th year of operation, and Transport for Wales is still advocating and supporting that. And the numbers that are going through there are significantly positive. But it also allows us to go in and do some work in some particular communities, communities of interest, areas in the city, trying to get our modal shift into businesses. The KLAs of this world that have then now done right in between site 1 at the Cauldron, going across to their site at the other side of Clapper Park. So that is starting to get those behaviour change moving. Can we validate all of that? No, we can't, if I'm honest with you, but we know the difference that's making, and we have got all of the participation data where people have signed up, booked in, used our app, come to sessions, but we record those quantitative but also qualitative conversations, because without you sharing that with us tonight, we wouldn't necessarily know that you've gone through stage 1, stage 2, and you've gone and bought it, and you've gone cycle to work scheme. That's the feedback loop that maybe we can get better on in asking those questions and re-engaging with customers or people who engage with us at the beginning. Can you tell us what your journey looks like 3 months in?
Well, that's a point. There was a survey afterwards, I for the bike, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe you should test that and see where I am now, maybe.
Yeah. So it's continuing that engagement, isn't it? Yeah. So that's good advice.
Thank you all, and obviously the bikes down Addrodiad Park is another good one that I've seen, and it's local to myself, and seeing young people obviously explore that, and I've seen a lot more families take on board that together, and inclusivity wise as well, which is fantastic, especially with my zebra nearby and things like that. There, it's been a really positive demonstration on that. I would say, strangely enough, on the other side then we've got the argument in the Gare, where we wish more people would walk to school or bike to school rather than being dropped off in cars, because the feeling is sometimes that if you can literally be like a drive-through, they would literally open the door to door for classroom to the car door. So anything that would be ideal to help. And if you have ideas, please obviously pass them on to councillors, because hopefully we can work together to make it a more active city in that regard. That would be really good. But I know about the quantitative and qualitative data is hard on that side. But I would ask, have you ever done an exercise of social impact at all in order to see what Live does for the wider community?
It's a real point that we've wrestled with. So there are about 3 or 4 different models that sit in what is the value of sport, leisure, physical activity, culture from an operator's point of view back to often to their city. Sheffield Hallam University is often the benchmark that is utilised, and the framework that they have with Sport England. There's conversations going on with Sport Wales about what metrics should everyone use to measure social value. So there's continuity, because I'll use an example, 2 areas in West Wales, both commissioned separate consultants to demonstrate social value from their sport and leisure service. Very similar facilities. Let's say one had 5, one had 6. One leveraged £14 million worth of social value because they've got a price on it. The other one leveraged 7. So depending on what our metric is, there isn't a model. And I also think with what we do at Newport Live, it's probably even harder to measure, because some of the events we don't interact. It's not a sale. It's not always a participation. We can't log exactly the number. Some of those community interactions, young people will turn up, play free of charge. They will come to Sport in the Park, in Beechwood Park, or in other areas of the city that we run in. Do we know what the social value of that interaction is? Where a lot of the measures are clear is when you've got repeat visits, you can segment your data, you can look at the type of user, the type of client. So in a nutshell, no, we're at the forefront of some research now to demonstrate the value of the National Excise Referral Programme. So looking at, with some better reporting tools, as mentioned in it today, some better reporting tools from our database, we'll be able to see when a patient was referred in, let's say in 2020, and we'll be able to see their journey over the 6 years, what they came to, when they came to it, what the frequency of participation was. So going back to your point about behaviour change, we will actually see then that those people who've been referred with a chronic condition have then participated. And I think we'll be able to use that tool to look across all of our services, certainly in the leisure space at the moment, to say, right, that segment of customer, if they come for that activity, how frequently do they participate? What is the value? Is that enough to impact on their health? The only challenge I have with it, and I'm someone who works in the sector, I will have quantitative data but not qualitative. I could go to the gym today, and as we say about certain young people, they've got really fit thumbs, because they'll go in there and they'll sit and they'll use their thumbs and they'll go on some devices, and they're not really getting a qualitative workout. Whereas other people will go there and they will get, you know, out of breath, they will get a physical benefit from it. So I think we've got to get better to demonstrate, certainly back into the Scrutiny Forum as an example of the social value that we deliver, because, you know, we're here and we're justifying, and I'm constantly justifying the trade and the why and the how, and we need more, but we need at least what we've got to deliver those services, and these are the values. So if we can get better at reporting that as a sector, then I think there will be more investment. The more I look at it, it's a miracle pill. It is amazing for, you know, your mental health, your physical health. That's probably not anywhere near enough played out in this report either, as to the wider value in the city, that if you as City Council stopped investing into your, regardless of Newport Life, into your leisure wellbeing services, the health, the well-being, the efficiency, the productivity of the city would go through the floor. You know, and I think that rich mix of public sector, private sector, voluntary sector is invaluable. We're in a privileged position that we can, the city has invested in assets which can bring public participants in, private, world-class sport. Newport International Sports Village, 99.99% of those users are not international athletes. They're local people, general public, who are coming in and doing activity. And the thing that we're seeing more and more now is they're coming in, and it's the social relationships and it's the social value that is more important than just doing the activity. So that's work that we're doing to try and get more people active, for the physical benefits, for all of those health benefits, and also to make it a financially viable model that, you know, if we can get people to look after their well-being, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy as well.
Within that context, has any work been done with the Future Generations and Wellbeing Commissioner and about how to obviously look and plan for that future? It'd be interesting to see that context of how, you know, Wales and us locally see ourselves moving forward, especially with the growing population, as we said.
Yeah, in terms of the strategies and the plans, they all reflect back to the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act. I'd like to see that act having a lot more powers. I'd like to see sport physical activity being, you know, statutory, because I think it can have such a powerful impact on the vibrancy of the city, the health and well-being of local residents. That's not the case, but there is consideration at the moment around a culture bill. So if you go and have a look at that at the moment, there's consultation around Wales creating a culture bill, and one of the questions that's being asked is, where does sport and physical activity sit into that realm? Feedback has been given back to the commissioner, about if that is to be a duty, then that really, in a nice way, empowers us. It really provides, it really provides strength to both members and officers to say, right, okay, we have to deliver this. What is the best way? Whereas at the moment, I find we have to justify it, and we have to justify it even stronger to stand still. I think we're in a strong position in Newport because there is huge value. And looking from the position I'm in as an operator, the city is investing. The city's creating strategies. You just published last week the pitches, the pitch strategy, the cultural strategy. There are reference points in your budget this year, which is investing in the community sport. That is not happening in a lot of other places, right? That is to be, that is to be welcomed and that is to be celebrated. And I think it's not very often an operator comes back and goes, it's not coming into a hugely welcoming to the sector, because that will sustain the vibrancy in the community.
Okay, thank you for that answer, Steve. I think obviously with the expertise, there's a good working relationship and connections, as you spoke about earlier. And I suppose from that, how do we kind of entice or encourage more both young people, but also the more older or wiser of our population to take part in physical action? Because we know things like from the younger side, especially with ACEs, but also the older side with mobility, and that as the only way I can think of it, forgive me for saying it, is when they start to degrade or decrease in their mobility and things like that, and or in terms of ACEs, depending on the interaction and interventions that we put in, obviously that can have an effect on the long-term costs towards the NHS because of things like, heart disease, obesity, things like that there, but also lack of mobility on the other end. As I say, how within the social value side as well, but how can we kind of encourage more people to look after their own health in that side, but also look at it more of that preventative side in terms of, this is what the cost could be moving forward, like in the billions, and then saying that, this is, I know we said it's hard to quantify, but how can we say, well, this is what we're doing, this is what we're encouraging more people to do as part of the wider city strategy, if you will?
I certainly think our relationship and our partnerships with the University Health Board are fundamental to that. They've got the metrics on what the costs are for someone going into hospital and avoidable illness, undoubtedly the cost of prescription and medication, and a lot of things are avoidable. So, there are certain conditions, congenital, other things that, are bestowed upon us, and accidents that will happen, and then we're grateful to the NHS. But there's a lot of things that you can self manage, and keep yourself away from there. I think for us to qualify and quantify that in cost terms, then maybe an answer if we can keep someone out of social care and prevent someone again having a fall as a cost to a hip and a knee replacement, right? And the rehabilitation every day that they're in hospital. Challenge I think we have at the moment is who wants to pay for prevention. If I'm a medical practitioner, I'm in that space, I'm paid to deliver that service. And undoubtedly there are people behind it who, are in the supply chain that, some of those things will happen. So how can we influence the prevention agenda, which isn't always it's certainly not in our contract. As a local authority provider, deliver these services. That's not in that, but we're pivoting more in that direction. So I think ABUHB's 2025-2030 strategy is all about prevention. So for us, it's about being on the front foot and saying, hello, we are here, we can help you prevent these illnesses, these conditions. We at Newport Live are now meeting with people from the therapies team and some of the community programs on a bi-monthly basis. I mentioned physiotherapy has been moved in. And what happens with that is there are people who gone through a knee replacement, some work, and then they realise that they need to continue that activity afterwards. So there's a business opportunity, there's a self-wellbeing and self-care provision, which will keep people away from the NHS. So I think we've just got to be advocates of the value of better wellbeing, self-management. If it's a prescribed programme, we can get funding, you know, and they want us to deliver that in a bespoke way, there will be funding for that. And that's people with similar conditions. If it's general population, I think we've got to get even stronger at marketing and advocating the value of, you know, the value of physical activity. I have a saying, and I've been through it, you only value your health when you lose it. You only value that when you know, when you've lost that mobility, you've got X condition, you've got Y condition. You know, I see it, I felt it, I've lived with it. We have customers who give us that lived experience every day. People are busy. People don't always see that value. People play sports and then their life changes. You know, they go to university, they do X, they get families. That changes participation. So we've got to find ways of making participation more accessible. It's why gyms have blossomed, right? Because I don't need someone to play with. I don't need 11 in a team. I can go at 6:05 in the morning. I can go at 6:30 in the morning. It's not formal, always a formal structure. Yet we know people will attend more frequently if there's a social value, if there's a group, if there's a team, if there's a group of people doing physical activity, group exercise, they have a coffee afterwards. That's enormous. It's thinking in psychology rather than physiology. I think that we're getting better at.
It's quite positive to hear, Steve, thank you. And it's obviously positive to hear amongst all of that within like care experience young people can access services. There's a lot within the disability world. There's a whole swathe of stuff that's really, really positive, and especially with the living wage and things like that, which is fantastic to increase because it benefits the city as well in terms of ways that we don't know inside of that side things. But seeing as you're here, Kevin, I will ask you a question as well, if you don't mind, because I know you're Mr. Facebook, get away the negative naysayers. Just a way of how do you feel Newport Live is kind of cementing a way to look at positive and Newport in a better light? Would you say that there's ways and means of in the outer world, and how can we encourage citizens to look positively through the vehicle, if you will, to look positive?
I think that if you look at the sort of marketing and comms that Newport Live does, it is 99% positive stuff because we're kind of, you know, I'm taken away there from the commercial stuff we do. So we will be promoting memberships at certain times of the year and whatever, or when we brought in High Rocks. I want to that stuff. You know, that was a big thing that we wrote. You can tell I don't do it. But then I think if you look at all of the other stuff that we do, and that will range from, you know, the Big Splash Festival to Lunar New Year. You know, only last week we were running our third community iftar event. I don't know, that's quite controversial at the moment. At the Riverfront Theatre, and you know, I did the welcome there, and that was a joy to see because, you know, yes, it was about Ramadan, breaking fast, etc. But we had people from all faiths and none there, you know, which was good. You know, I think that we are generally seen as an organisation that is positive about Newport because everything that we do is about Newport. You know, Steve will often say, quite rightly, that we're not about delivering services on behalf of the council or Welsh Government or any of our partners. We're about delivering services for the city of Newport and the people of the city of Newport. And you know, you'll know well enough, Chair, that yeah, I do spend a fair amount of time saying, as a city, do we have problems and issues? Of course we do, and so does every other town and city in the UK. And if anybody from somewhere else says they haven't got issues, they're lying. The problem we have, I think, in Newport is a lot of people never leave Newport. A lot of people don't see what's going on elsewhere, so you concentrate on what's on your doorstep. There is far more positive stuff going on in our city than there is negative stuff. Unfortunately, the people that talk about the negative stuff tend to have the loudest voices, and the people that talk about the positive stuff don't shout loudly enough about it. And I think organisations like Newport Live and others just need to be shouting more about the positives while being pragmatic enough to say we've also got to find solutions to problems.
That's fine, Kevin, thank you. And I think it's positive. Some of the events that you said, I know I was talking to people at the New Year, and people from Swansea and everything were coming down when, you know, they have small celebrations like, no, we found Newport is better and really wants to come here, from London and elsewhere, from Manchester. Really, really positive. Same for a lot of the other events. People come from right across the country. So it's nice for them to come in and see, as well as, you know, hopefully people with the free splash events. And I think it's the thing, isn't it? We're the biggest free outdoor event with the splash programme in Wales, yeah, for that side, which is fantastic. You know, and it's really good to have in our city to share. Same as all events, you know, has a focus with the riverfront. So it's you know, it takes pride in precedence within events within our city, but also city centre. So that's quite positive on that side. So I do appreciate obviously on that, and quite positive from what's been advised to us within the partnership. Yes, challenges, but yeah, there's, you know, programs to move forward, and hopefully with that partnership to move forward for sure. To the that side. Is there any other questions from colleagues at all? Or quite satisfied? No. For those online, Councillor Davis or Councillor Hussain?
From me, thanks, Chair.
Fine.
Sorry, then I was going to come to White. So I was going to come down the list.
Nothing else from me, the Chair.
That's fine. Thank you all online. Unless is there any other comments or anything else like that from yourselves? No. So thank you very much. Obviously, it's quite comprehensive and really positive to see a lot of the work and action being undertaken. So thank you. Before we, as I allow you to leave, we will just go through any recommendations or points from the committee.
Thanks very much, Chair. One of the things noted down at the moment is the committee requested if officers can arrange a site visit and members to view Newport Live facilities such as the station gym, and general comments about praising the range of services provided by Newport Live, and commending the organisation for the range of opportunities available to young people, in particular teenagers. Again, praise Newport Live for its role in promoting the city through major events like Big Splash, and recommended that this work is more clearly reflected within future reports. Just point to Councillor Bright and your comment about the engagement data about the Momentum Initiative. Just wondering how you'd like me to note that.
I don't know, maybe some sort of follow-up email after.
Yeah, I think the point made was about effectively tracking the behaviour change and being able to see the journey and then being able to evidence that, so provide that 360-degree feedback. I'll look at that.
Thank you very much. Was there any other comments or recommendations the committee would like to make?
Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we can cut into this by packing two colleagues. It's just the scrutiny reports and minutes the last meeting. So if we go through the scrutiny report, please.
So just advise the previous comments, recommendations in central officers, the safety report and the city centre update. Just chasing feedback from that. Our next committee meeting will be on the 24th of June, 5 o'clock. That'll be the Safety Newport annual report. We'll also present the draft annual board work programme as well at this meeting. Myself and Sam have sent the board work programme to the full committee members already. If there are any suggestions, we can take them by email as well, and we'll also have the opportunity to discuss this at the meeting as well. So actually, that's everything on my end.
That's great, thank you very much, Neil. I think it just goes to the minutes of the last meeting, which I'm trying to remind myself because I didn't print the other sheet. Can you remind me the date of the last meeting?
That was the 4th March, I think it was, Chair.
Yeah, so it's the 11th of March, apologies colleagues. I had printed out the top part of the agenda, but it didn't actually have the date on of the meeting. So we go on to the minutes of the last meeting as said of the 11th of March. Is colleagues satisfied that they are a true and correct record, or was there any matters arising? True records, yeah, I'm having a few true records, that's excellent, thank you colleagues. So on that side, obviously thank you and appreciate all your input this evening and can officially close the meeting. Thank you colleagues.
Cheers all.